Hello, Soulsync. It's me, Jason Paul, and the sun is shining. It's out, and I'm feeling good. Hottest day of the year in Britain so far, 25 degrees. Can you believe it? Mid-April. Global warming, not good, but also beautiful at the same time. I've had a nice walk today, ran a reservoir, a couple of laps, getting into the fitness, trying to lose those summer pounds. I've put on a bit of weight recently, and I'm trying to work it off. Now, I've managed to persuade the lovely Lawrence Savill, who's a medium, who's been on the podcast recently, and he is a knowledgeable chap. Let me tell you that. He runs a circle in Paul Spiritualist Church, and he has a certain way. Firstly, he's been teaching forever. His service to the spirit world and to the church that he serves in Paul is nothing short of fantastic. Let me tell you that. Now, he's been teaching for a long time, and Lawrence has a way of explaining things that makes a lot of sense, really. And you can tell it's come from, a lot of experience and a path that's been well trodden. Let me tell you that. That's from one person who's lived an interesting life to another. So Lawrence has come on to do a workshop episode today where we're going to delve deep. Now, the episode is titled, Are You Blocking Your Mediumship Without Realising It? Now, it is a problem. We do block our own mediumship for a number of reasons. Some of that is to do with the mind, it's to do with conditioning, it's to do with what we believe is possible, it's limiting beliefs, because connecting to the spirit world is like tuning in to what's around you. You're not connecting up to it, it is around us all the time. It is like a frequency that we are dialing into. So I have a very deep dive on this conversation, and you're going to find it interesting. There's so many pearls of gold, but I can't even get them all in the length of the intro track. But trust me, there's lots in there, so you're going to enjoy it. This is my workshop episode with the lovely Lawrence Savill. Oh, Lawrence, I'm so excited to welcome you back so soon. It's lovely. It's beautiful. Welcome back to the Soul Sync.
Thank you, Jason. Big pleasure to be back with you all.
It's lovely. Well, as I was saying before we hit the record button, I always love these kind of deeper dive workshop style episodes. And when you agreed to come on and do one, I was thrilled because you talked a fair bit on the previous episode about, how you teach people, help them unfold their mediumship. And you've got a very beautiful way of explaining things. So it's a lovely opportunity to do a deeper dive. So welcome.
Oh, no pressure then. That's wonderful. Thank you.
So the topic we're going to talk today is about kind of learning mediumship, which even in itself, saying learning it is an interesting way to even begin, isn't it? Because is it learned? Is it remembered? Does it begin, with ability, or is it intention?
Yeah.
I've just posed many questions to you there.
Which one first? No, you are quite right. There are many, many facets to it. I've looked at it from the lens of somebody starting their mediumship journey. And please, when I say mediumship, I don't just mean evidential. It can be philosophical, it can be healing, for your own development, for your own use, it doesn't matter. Mediumship is a generic term across the board. But I've just looked at it and asking a few questions that often we don't ask, we don't stop to consider, because we see the bright flashing lights,
we do.
Yeah, do this workshop and you'll be up on the platform tomorrow. Well, there's an awful lot behind the scenes that we maybe want to consider.
There is indeed. When you go into, I think it's, a lot of people listen to this podcast because they're interested in mediumship. But I remember the first time I went and saw a medium, and it didn't, I sort of wanted to believe it, but I wasn't getting a message myself. But I've seen a lot of mediumship in my time, and I often question, if I'd have got a message sooner, because it took me sort of probably 10 years from the first time I went to a spiritualist church to started to even consider unfolding it. But there is a lot to it. So where do we even begin with that? Someone wants to develop it. What do they even do?
Wow. Excuse me. I would always pose this question when I have people approaching me about learning to develop their mediumship. And I find this a very useful question, is why do you want to pursue this? Now, that isn't a question that we stop and think about. What is it? And it's a multi-layered question, because the more you learn, the more you develop, the more these questions start to take on hidden depths. What is it about mediumship? We do have people coming in, they see somebody on the platform and think, I can do that. And then they're all eager, and that's great. We love eagerness. But like any work, any job, you don't just walk into a brand new job without any of the underpinning knowledge of the job. So you go and work at Sainsbury's on the till. You've got to learn how the till works. You've got to learn disciplines of being there on time. You've got to learn different aspects of dealing with customers and the public. You learn a numerical quality of counting money and giving change. So just sat there on the till, that's what everybody sees. But where's that underpinning that allows you to sit there and actually allows you to do the job? Exactly the same with any form of mediumship. There's an awful lot of underpinning work that needs to be brought in, developed, and evolved. And I really emphasize that word evolve, because we never stop learning.
I even think back to myself, what made me develop my mediumship? And for me, it was curiosity. It was the fact that I wanted proof of the spirit world. And every time I saw a medium do it, that for me still wasn't proof enough, because I either wasn't getting the message myself, or the message I was getting, I could take a lot of it, but not other bits. But then it was the more I learnt about it, it was made me even more curious, because I thought, well, now, I know about this. What do I do with this? And I thought, well, I need to know more. And it was actually pursuing my loved ones in the spirit world that probably kept bringing me back to it, because it was only when I was developing my mediumship was the only time I would get a message. I'm not sure if my granddad and loved ones in spirit keep choosing that to be the way they communicate. No, we're not going to do it we will only communicate to him when he's in a circle, when he's ready to unfold it himself. I don't know if you will have, of course they have that level of knowledge up there, but we all come to it for different reasons, don't we? And if I was probably in the club of wanting to run before I could walk, and then I realised that actually it doesn't work like that, does it, Lawrence?
We all do these things. A lot of people, when they get the first car, straight behind the wheel, that's it. On the motorway, I'm going to do 70, everything, because
That was me again. You're just summarising my personality. Not so much these days. I've learned to be more considered and slower.
That's really interesting, because that leads into the next part of this. We do, when we get something new, the enthusiasm is there, and the excitement about it all. I remember when I was learning and developing, I used to have a partner, and we would go out quite often and do clubbing. And halfway through the night, and certainly a little bit worse for wear, mediumistic faculties would open up. Now, I do not condone that. Pen waggling, sorry, my fiddler.
Oh, you fiddle the pen if you like. I have nothing against that.
But it was because of the newness, because of the excitement, because I could do it. And it just came in, and I was so fortunate. My partner at the time dragged me out by the scruff of the neck and said, "You are not to do that with alcohol." And I was, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. That's fine. But when we're first there, it is exciting. It's wonderful. You're opening up the doorway to a whole new world and a whole new look at our existence.
Well, it literally is a whole new world, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a world.
Yeah. We have this formulaic view: you're born, you live, you die. And then suddenly you start to discover, you're born, you live, you change. And then you're born again. And then you live again. And then you change again. So you start to really challenge all our taught and indoctrinated ways of views of life. So that's where the excitement comes from. That's where oh my gosh, this is great. This is wonderful. But don't forget, we have a lot of people who have the ability who don't actually want it. When I've been called out on house clearances in my time, an awful lot of the time it's the mediumistic faculties of the people involved. It's not, because we've got a bit of a Hollywood version of spiritualism at times. Oh, they've come. Well, they don't come because they're here. They're here all the time. We just shift our vibration and move those dimensions, and we are there with them. Where people have got latent mediumistic abilities, they don't want it. And I don't blame them, because they've got no desire. They've got no involvement in spiritualism. Religion can be very, very strong with them, or just non-existence as well. But the actual thought of seeing dead people is really abhorrent to them, and they don't want it.
I hadn't ever considered that when people were getting, sort of ghostly encounters, so to speak, or spirit encounters. I suppose a lot of the time it is, their sensitivity opening up. And I can understand why that's scary, but I suppose it's, what should they be doing in that moment? I suppose they don't want to go and sit in a circle and find out more about it. They want you to make it go away. They want you to do the opposite. They want you to close it down.
Yes. My advice in that scenario is what I do. This is something I teach, and it's cutting the link. So if, for example, a figure started building up here and I'm going, I don't like this, I don't like this, I would talk in my mind very plainly and very openly, no incantations or no magic spells, but just like, go away, you're freaking me out. And then take your attention away from it. And that's the important thing. Because if I say, oh, go away, and I sit here waiting, watching, have they gone yet? Have they? That link is still there.
Well, it is, yes. You're not breaking the link. I see what you mean. You're sort of sitting there on edge, giving it your energy, aren't you, I suppose?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as I say, that is in some cases, but in our cases of looking at progressing it, this eternal question of why. And this is a really good question. If you're sat with a reputable medium mentor, this is a question, in my opinion, should be revisited once every 6 months, because the initial answer will change. The understanding and the acknowledgement of working with the divine, the understanding and the acknowledgement of what does eternal life actually mean? That's quite a big question. That is quite a big question.
Well, it's a very big question, and it can lead you down 8 billion and one rabbit holes, can't it?
That's the beauty of it, because each and everybody is individual in their experience. And although we can listen to other people, listen to their experiences, it's the tools, the nuts and bolts to be able to ask those questions ourselves and come to that answer. You mentioned earlier about seeing mediums and getting the evidence, or maybe not, or, not completely fulfilled. That is always going to be an eternal thing, because we as mediums, we have the evidence or the presentation coming in from spirit, but then we as a logical mind want to make that into a story that we understand. But often this is where the complications set in. I did a wonderful little trial test with my circle just recently, and I gave them 3 words. I said, this is your communication from spirit. And I just gave them 3 words. I said, now present that. And we had 7 totally different presentations based on those 3 words. And I said the whole reason for that is to highlight how our mind, our perspective, our understanding formulates the evidence to present, but that's never going to be in the same way as the sitter will understand it, or even indeed the spirit will understand it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because even when you say that every single one of us is having our own experiences, there is no one person in the world who will ever, be entirely like you, because we're all brought up in a totally unique kind of situation. And for that reason, we can bog ourselves down a lot in life of trying to find, our people or whatever. No one's ever going to be exactly the same as you. You are unique, which, makes total sense when it comes to mediumship. And the question of why is a question I ask myself a lot these days about many, many areas of my life. It's actually one of the biggest questions I teach my newbie people into sales. Why? Ask it of every client, customer. It's the best question in the dictionary. But yes, it's, very powerful, isn't it?
It is. So, when we start to develop that desire to start to develop whatever latent mediumistic potentials that we have, that question should be in that mix. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to come home from work on a Monday night at 6 o'clock after having, the Monday from hell, and a rush dinner, and then jump in the car and go and sit somewhere at 7 o'clock? Because it is very demanding in its rigors. Often, I used to work nights, and I was in a circle that was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I used to, every time, if I was on a night...
Oh, that's a right old bugger of a time, 2 p.m. when you do nights. That's commitment, that. I know that because I did nights.
Well, I'll get in at 6 in the morning, go, no, I'm not going to circle today. Well, at 2 p.m, guess where I'll be? Fast asleep in circle. No, not fast. No. But I would
in between
be,
worlds.
Yes. So, that initial question, why? Why do we want to do this? And keep revisiting that question as well, because as your development grows, your understanding grows, you'll find different depths. You will find different meanings, different understandings of that question. I've had people say, oh, yeah, I want to be a medium. Why is that? Because I want all the money. And I'm like, well, good luck with that, mate.
I'm honestly, do you know what, in terms of my mediumship, I must be, if it was a business and I had a P&L sheet, I dread to even think how much in the red I would be by this point that I've spent on it. Not that I look at it like that, but yeah, this, and do you know what, I have a massive problem sometimes even bloody charging for readings, because I just end up doing them, because I don't look at mediumship as my work. I sort of look at it as a passion, but there's you do end up spending a lot on it. So when people come to you, then what sort of camps do you think they fit in this question of why? How have you seen people's why evolve?
It's very interesting. We keep going through different phases in spiritualism, and it's been much more pronounced, in my opinion, of late. We just seem to be coming out now of the trance fascination. For quite some time, trance was it. Everybody, oh yes, trance mediumship, trance, I've got to do trance. I'm of the generation trance has a totally different meaning, and it was fabulous. But it was based upon the lack of knowledge of people that had this envisionment of trance as spirit stepping in, a bit like in Ghost. Do you remember that scene in Ghost where she sat there and they're all jumping in and jumping out? That actually was a lot of people's idea, but again, we tend not to think too hard about these things. We just take it for granted it's this. And trance mediumship is beautiful, but the mind of the medium is always going to be active. It cannot not be active within that. And it's a very deep and purposeful cooperation It is not the spirit are going to step in, you go out, and then come back 10 minutes later and go, oh, what did they say? Was it interesting? You know. So the trance fascination does seem to be waning, but the new fascination, which is wonderful, is the healing side of mediumship. And that is a continual pull. And even people who have come to here in Paul have sat to develop evidential mediumship. In the courses for evidential, I always do one evening of healing mediumship. And the number of people at the end of the course go, you know what, I really like the healing. You know, and again, you can ask that question, why? Mediumship isn't a mask. I know I say this quite a lot, but people do tend to either consciously or most likely unconsciously, oh, if I'm a medium stood up there, it means, yeah, I'm a good person. Well, you can be a good person without standing up there. If I'm a healer, I'm bringing relief to everybody. So when you
probably much easier ways to be a good person, to be a kind person, than to stand on the platform. It's a hard way to do it.
I know, but then we start dealing in the ids and the egos, and that's where it gets a bit messy. But like with the healing mediumship, you know, everybody wants to make everybody else feel better. And I've heard a medium said this to me once, and I was baffled. And I said, I'm only ever happy when I'm stood on a platform giving messages, and I'm going, wow, there's a lot there you need to unpack.
Yes.
Seriously. So with this, why do you want to pursue this? It's finding where your heart goes. It's finding where your soul resides. You know, it's all right chasing something, but if your heart and your passion isn't there, do you not think you may want to listen to your soul? Do you not think you may want to listen to your own guidance from your higher self and go, yeah, it's a nice idea to be up there. And again, people don't understand, you know, giving up 40 out of 52 Sundays of the year. That's not very appealing, is it?
No, it's not. The day of rest for most.
Exactly. If you work Monday to Friday, Saturdays and Sundays are very valuable. But it's finding that flow with your soul, with your own magic, with your own understanding, and you will know that's where we want to go.
It's like a pull. It very much pulled me back every time. And even this, coming year, I think to myself, I'm going to scale back some of the mediumship time I've allocated. And I just can't, because I get pulled back to it. And it is kind of like a pull of the soul, and I think, like we said, so many people come into it for different reasons. And it's a very interesting topic of discussion, even the fact of how do you go about unfolding it, because we're in the world now of more information than ever before, and I guess even your journey, you've probably seen it firsthand from your time of when you developed to where we are now is just crazy. And how the expectations of people, I imagine, have changed in line with information at the fingertips, one might say, Lawrence.
Yeah, very true. The information overload. I've seen people chase after everything. I've seen people, one week they're a psychic artist, next week they're a trance medium, the next week they do tasseography, and I'm just like, when are you going to make your mind up? when are you going to go? I can be quite reactionary at times, and I did navigate my own path through where people are coming in with their own different thoughts and philosophies. Initially, I could have been a bit dismissive. I own up to that. That is in my nature. But now it's like, well, if that floats your boat, that's absolutely wonderful. But for me, here, now, and this is me, my path is spiritualism, and I will be sticking to that. So you may have these thoughts about whatever philosophy, whatever gamut of different sources of information for you. That's great. But just understand it's not for me. Because I want to go in depth. I want to really absorb and really understand and explore what I am doing in spiritualism. And I don't want to start watering that down by being pulled in all these different directions, because a lot of these new philosophies coming in are actually just rehashes of different things we've seen over many years.
Yes, I do agree with that.
So, yeah, it's absolutely fine. If you find peace in that, if you find joy in that, that's great. But please, I'm on this path. I'm not being rude to your path. I'm just on this path. And this is where I'm going with it. So, yeah, the information side can be counterproductive.
I can 100% relate to that, and it made me sort of smile when you were saying that, because again, that's another one of my rabbit holes that I've gone down, is thinking knowing more is in some way advantageous. It's not, because I spent a lot of time getting confused, and you're right. Even now, so much of modern day kind of literature on mediumship is a rehash of something else that's older. And I've even found myself now going back to all the books of the mediums from the early 1900s and late 1800s, because I used to be a little bit put off by those books, by the word, but the sort of language they would use. But actually, to be honest with you, they're smaller, those books as well. They tend to be much thinner. So I actually stand a chance of finishing one, which, is a whole another conversation. But, so there's a lot of places that you can go, but I think you are right there. And I do think starting, with just a circle, is a good place to start, isn't it? Not everyone's fortunate enough to have one, but if you're not, then perhaps you could start one.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, we are now in the virtual world as well.
We are.
And there are some very good works being carried out in the virtual arena. Similarly, there are also some paths there that you need to be very wary of. If it doesn't sit with you, if the person, the tutor, the mentor, whoever's running these courses, if they don't sit with you, and I don't mean as in, they're just going to be wonderful. I say to my circles, if you're looking for a circle where I'm going to pat you on the head and tell you how wonderful you are, you may as well leave now, because that's not going to happen. I will be honest, open, direct, but I'm coming from a place of learning. I don't bring personality into it. I don't bring mutual dislike or anything into these things. And this should be the same with any mentor. They should be there because we ask that question of ourselves, why do we want to pursue that? Similarly, you can turn that around and say to a prospective mentor, circle leader, whatever, and say, why do you want to teach this?
That's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah. Anybody worth their salt will take that on the nose and go, because X, Y, Z.
And if they're not willing to answer that question, straight away there's a red flag there.
Yeah, because not answering that question can be arrogance. It can be, actually, they haven't got any idea themselves. And sadly, I am seeing some issues with that background. They don't want to say, because it's going to be $600 a month in my pocket from you, thank you very much. So, yeah, it is, and it's all about mutual respect and understanding. As I say, it's never happened. But if anybody were to ask me, why do you want to teach me this? I would like that question. I would welcome that question.
Isn't it interesting that you've never even been asked the question?
I think because I'm a bit of an open book, people just see the passion.
Oh, okay.
And I always say, you have the passion. Whatever you do, find that passion. Once you start in that passion energy, it's evident to everybody. It's just there. I love it. And yeah, teaching people brings about its own challenges with some people. That's fine. That's why the world's different. That's why we're all different. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, well, great.
I agree. And I think it's when you have passion in something, that's the energy of manifestation, isn't it? If you're doing things where you sort of dragging your heels because you feel you have to. And I look back actually at my own development, and I used to sort of say to myself, okay, if I'm going to develop my mediumship, I need to sit every day for spirit. And then it was when I was speaking to a friend of mine a few weeks later, and he sort of almost shone a mirror in my face at what I was doing. And I used to sort of go, oh, it's the time now, sort of dragging my heels up the stairs. And then he says, well, it's hardly surprising why you're not feeling the energy of the spirit, is it? Because you're not, you're going in there already like, I have to do this. It should be, I want to do this. So if you're trying to do, I'm bad at setting unrealistic expectations from the start. I'm the sort of person who'll go from saying, okay, I'm not going to the gym my goal is 5 times a week from January the 1st, totally unrealistic from the start.
Yeah. And we do that. We do set unrealistic. And this mirrors right the way through, as you just wonderfully put about the gym, and I can totally relate to that. I think I've managed it 5 times this year, but never mind, moving on. We do. And all through the development of mediumship, I always say to people, you never fail when you're practicing your mediumship. Your sense of failure comes from you haven't exceeded the expectations you had of yourself.
That's an interesting one, isn't it?
Every time we work with film, you see, because there's another very valuable lesson about failure. There is no failure. It may come about that we don't get what we want, what we expected, what we desired. And the other thing linking in very strongly with that is about lessons. I always say not every lesson comes wrapped in bows and with puppies. Some lessons come at you screaming, shouting, and raging. It's still a lesson. It's how we respond. Yes,
especially the hardest lessons. Some of those are definitely not with bows, puppies, and all things sweet and nice, are they?
Sadly not.
No, I'm one for sometimes having to learn the hard way. I will say that. But, expectations that we put on ourselves is a massive one. I'm terrible for, times giving myself a very hard time. And I think a lot of us are. And I even look back at some of how I've grown my business over the years, and it wasn't from a place of self-encouragement at times. It was from almost like being an army officer to myself. No, you will do more. You're not good enough. You must do more of this. And you think about that internal narrative that you've got going on, that so many of us have. And even with mediumship, the amount of times you see people developing where they say, oh, I'm not good enough, it's not something that I can do or whatever. And, that's why it takes so much self-work, doesn't it? It's not necessarily just, as you say, standing on the platform, giving a message from spirit. It's all that self-work that has to go into, the amount of self-limiting beliefs we have in life is just crazy, isn't it?
It is. We should always think that energy follows thought.
Yes.
So if you sit there saying, I'm not good enough, guess what? People in my circles know when they say, I can't, my response is like a parrot. No, you can't now because you just said that. So take a pause, take a breath, rework the energy and try again later. If you keep saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not saying that we're going to become Superman or Superwoman, but we can start to learn areas that we're not going to make those promises to ourselves because we realize for whatever reason they are beyond our capabilities. Something like we've got a 5K charity run on this Saturday. Well, me entering a 5K charity run is not going to be pretty. It'll be 1K There'll be a 1K charity crawl and a ride to Port Hospital in an ambulance. So,
I think you're underselling yourself. I imagine you could do a 5K.
Yeah, I could do it in a car. But again, it's what the goals are we set ourselves. And this is where we consistently set ourselves up to fail. And that's quite a big thing. We do it. We self-sabotage.
We do. And I think even when I look at my own life in just so many ways, I can just, with the benefit of age now, I look back and I think it's hardly surprising why this series of events happened. And it's because, I would switch, for instance, energetically. When I was in manifesting mode in my life, for instance, when I was growing my business, I was very much, positive vibes, really thinking about where it was I was going. And then when the wheels fell off, it's when I replaced that for worry. And so much of, what you attract in your life is literally just the thought and the energy you put out. And like you say, it's the same in mediumship. If you are going to, go in with, a lot of self-criticism, then, you really need to look at the way that you speak to yourself and your thoughts. And I always remember the exercise that Eileen Davis, a medium, got me to do recently, which was about having a band on one wrist, and every time you notice yourself or catch yourself having a fear-based thought, move the band onto the other wrist. And that was bloody eye-opening, I tell you.
Mm.
That was eye-opening.
That was actually based on a therapy where you...
Oh, it was. Yeah, she would snap hers, but I wouldn't do it because it would hurt. It would catch the hairs on my arm every time. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, it certainly reminds you, and it got me really thinking in a better place. So, people are going along then in their journey of, trying to unfold their mediumship. What would you say are some of the pitfalls, you see people, make? And it'd be interesting. Let's see how many of them I've fallen down.
I'm going to get a bit pedantic here.
Yes.
And just correct that when you say about trying to unfold a mediumship, they're looking to explore.
Yes, I must stop using that word, trying.
Yeah.
Learning to unfold one's mediumship.
The word try implies failure.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I'm going to try that, but it probably won't work. I'm going to try that, but I don't feel confident. Try implies failure. So again, it's just a little twist of a word. It's moving the elastic band to the other wrist. But some of the pitfalls. Not getting what you expected straight away can be a very big pitfall. And again, that's based on self and expectations. The other pitfalls can be not finding either a healthy group or mistrust from your mentor or coach or whatever. That can be incredibly harmful. Because if you put your faith and trust in somebody and whatever reason that is misplaced, that can really have a significant impact on us. And accepting defeat readily, that to me is a very big pitfall. If I try something and it doesn't work, I go, okay, why didn't it work? I want to go back through this. I want to try and track where it stopped working. I want to understand why that didn't work. And invariably comes back to self, expectations, management, abilities, whatever. But at least you understand it and then you can progress on. But in the beginning, in that very early stage of any form of development, any form of knockback can have a disastrous effect on us, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. Often it will be displaced by us because that person was horrible to me. And when you start to say, well, how were they horrible? Well, they kept telling me I was doing it wrong. Well, what were you trying to do? I was trying to do this, but I thought I'd go down that route. And we go, hang on, right, we're changing the narrative here. Initially, that person was horrible, but now we're getting to the stage of I wasn't doing what I was asked to do. Slight difference there. We can resolve so many of our conflicts, our perceived failures, through really digging back through what's been done, what's been said, what's been missed. This is one reason I never entertain discourse, if somebody comes in to tell me about what somebody else has done, I just say, unless they're both here, I don't want to hear. Because you will only ever hear you say, oh, they were terrible. Oh, he shouted at me. Why? Oh, he's just a horrible person. Why? Well, no, I was talking when he was trying to tell us to do an exercise. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Now we're getting interesting. Now the mist is clearing. So we can do this as an exercise with all facets of our life, be it in our spiritual development, in our careers, in our families, in our love lives. Whatever, we can look, and if we are really honest and really methodical, often we will get down to the reason where it started to go wrong can be totally unrelated to what the perceived issue is I'm dealing up here actually stems from an issue down there, and a lot of the time from childhood or development years. I remember, this is a personal experience of mine, so I don't mind sharing this. Somebody really pushed me on the questioning about something that had gone astray. And I kept saying, why? Why? And I suddenly blurted out, I said, because I don't deserve it. Oh my God, there was this thunderous silence rolled in, because that was the first time I had said that to myself, about myself. And it really was one of those, oh my God, I need to deal with this, don't I? I really need to heal this because this is causing issues. It's a fascinating journey. So the pitfalls, they are there, they are many. The regular attendant, you will get times you'll come in from work and go, no, I'm not going out, especially in the winter months. You know, when it's dark at 4 o'clock, you get home in the dark, it's raining, and you think, am I going to circle? Am I not? Well, you know, you should make a commitment.
That's a big one, isn't it?
Sorry, Jace?
That's a big one. I think you made many good points. I think that, first of all, in life, you know, don't be afraid to have a go, throw your hat in the ring, experiment. You know, that's how you learn at the end of the day. And if anything, I think throughout my life, I've probably taken too many rolls of the dice and thrown my hat in the ring. But that's, you know, why I've developed a lot of different things. But, you know, I think that's interesting. And I think that don't fear knows, you know, all these things that happen, you know, look at them and learn from them. So I just thought that was very interesting there when you look back at that. It's the knockbacks that make you grow, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is indeed. A no is a great thing from a congregation. It teach you, we say you've got to be out of your thinking, but there has to be a certain amount of critical thinking available to you. I often say with my students, if you get a no, go back and repackage it. Now, I don't mean change it. So, you know, I'm showing you a pen. Oh, okay. No, actually, it's a mouse. I don't. That's a no. But if I say I'm showing you a pen, they're going, no. And I said, would you understand then like a pencil? No. All right. Where are we going? This is chalk writing on a blackboard. They're a teacher. Yes. Wonderful. You know, you've got through that. No, you've explored and worked the evidence and not just dropped it, because we see a lot of people do that. Oh, well, I'll leave that with you. You know, you end up sending people out with bags of stuff that they don't understand.
They leave with more than they came in.
I know. Come in with baggage and they go out with 10 times
more.
But again, it's just the learning that, you know, we're not going to hit everything right on the head. I love working with engineers because I was in engineering. And when I get an engineer in, I go, oh, this is going to be fun. I like this. This is great because I understand very much a way of thinking. Engineers are terrible, terrible people.
I imagine lots of, very analytical, and I imagine very detailed in their readings.
They are, and they're never wrong. An engineer is never wrong. It's always somebody else. That's something I learned in my many years working with them. But I love working with the engineers because there's that commonality there, the understanding. And we get 101 different types of contacts through. And it's just learning, if nice little exercise in circle, just pick, this is early days circle, pick two people. What do you do for a job? I think one was a nurse. The other chap, what do you do for a job? I'm a plumber. Okay, to the nurse, describe the plumber's job. And to the plumber, describe the nurse's job. And it's a really nice exercise because you can hear, see, and feel the difficulty in explaining what your perception is of that job. And again, to me, it's a very valuable learning curve of when you're working evidentially is just whatever you get, work with that one part and work to unfold it to its best. Don't be afraid of a no.
I like it when you tell me about your little experiments, by the way. They're always very interesting.
We should be doing this. We should be doing, no matter what level we're at, experimenting with the spirit world was what got spiritualism noticed. And it seems to have died a death. But we should be, even with the most advanced circles, things like memory card out of a phone, ensuring it is blank, and putting that into the circle and asking for an image to be put on there. And I have seen that be successful.
And what happened there? How does that work?
There used to be a practice where the medium would sit with a camera. So before we had mobile phones, electronic devices, and they would sit with a camera and pictures would come out on the film when it was developed.
Oh.
Going back in the further past, the Bang sisters, very well-known spirit artists of the time, and they did what was called precipitous art. So they would present a painting, but over time, different elements would start to appear in this painting. Colours would start to come in. The only thing that limits the spirit world is that.
It's interesting as well because that's the beauty of your circle is the fact there's so much variety. But you're right, that is what got spiritualism noticed, and it's what we need to be doing more because it really brings out, because I think mediumship is, truly a creative process when you blend with the spirit world. And I think by us having these particular conscripts and ways on which, I even think to myself, I've seen a lot of different circles over time, and a lot of them is, it's kind of the same thing or not really, allowing the mediums to sort of develop in a way that's kind of working on all facets of their mediumship because it's very two-dimensional. But even the beauty of that experiment with the nurse and the engineer, I can imagine that's, that is just such a fascinating thing to do because it's true to develop your mediumship. If you're engineer-minded and you're only bringing through, you're not practicing that, well, how are you going to communicate, a different spirit through you that's of a different profession? That's why you need to get as much, experience of every sense or facet or whatever it might be.
Very much so. I mean, the medium's best item that they can develop is what we call the toolbox. And the toolbox, you take it, spirit work with us psychically to a degree. It's what's in our mind is utilised. I always say if I had a mathematician come through and give me the mathematical formula to turn lead into gold, I wouldn't understand it because my mind definitely isn't programmed that way. But whereas somebody else may well be, oh yeah, that's so-and-so and so-and-so, that's easy. So it's what's in the mind, what's in the energy of the medium. And we can keep working at developing our toolbox, very simple little techniques. If you're sat somewhere having coffee or you're sat on a bus or whatever, really look at people and make that conscious, because we see so many things that just pass through our unconsciousness. But for instance, I'm looking across the road now and there's a beautiful hedge. Can't quite remember the name of it, but I know it's just starting to come into flower with these white flowers. And although they are beautiful, it's a rich honey scent, it can be really catching when they are in full bloom and it's hot. And so I'm consciously taking in the image that I'm seeing. Same with people. You can look at somebody and go, have they got a round face, an oval face, a long face? Is it proportionate? Is there anything that sticks out particularly? Obviously, you've got to be very careful how you do that. You don't sit there in a cafe like that looking at her.
Yeah, I can imagine. Lawrence, you're staring again. You're staring. Oh, I'm just developing one of my Claires today.
All right. Yeah, actually, that's a good example. I might use that when I'm cool. But there are so many things we can do. One thing two things I've really enjoyed working with. When I tell you, you might think, oh, that's a bit weird. For me, the word cancer wasn't enough, because we would say, oh, cancer condition. As a cancer sufferer myself, I know that there are different types. So I just sat there and Googled types of cancer and really sort of took in these different types of cancer. And lo and behold, Deming, I said, this is a carcinoma cancer they had. And they went, yeah. And I went, that's great, because I've made that effort. Similarly with where we're working now more and more with European friends, trying to take in little facets of different languages, even just the greetings. How do you say hello in Swiss, Dutch, Danish, Portuguese? Just try and remember those, because it opens up this whole new realm of communication possibilities.
It's interesting, isn't it? The journey you go on when you develop your mediumship is and it's a lifelong journey, and that's why, it's something when you pick it needs to be unfolded for the right reasons, because but that's why I can't stop going back to it myself, because it helps my life in many different areas. It is a cross-pollinator, we could say.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. I mean, we may have that focus on developing our evidential mediumship, or we may have that focus on developing our healing mediumship or our philosophical mediumship. But at the end of the day, we are developing that link with spirit. Now, spirit will take the opportunities. The more easier that link flows, the more fluid that we've made that link, we will have moments of inspiration. We will have moments of, I don't want to get involved in this. Something's not right. I've been having people coming in doing quotes for a new roof. And honestly, some of them just gave themselves away. I had one person, he was totally fascinated by squirrels. Have you got squirrels? No. What? But other people were turning up and I'm going, no. Other people turned up and I went, yeah, I really like you. And the ones who went, oh, yeah, do you know what? I like you, you're good. They are the ones whose quotes have been really well produced. I can't say affordable. Nothing's affordable these days, but that's neither here nor there. But you just develop this sort of knowing. You're working on enhancing all your senses. So your own spirit will go, are you sure you want to go there? Are you sure about this person? Or, oh, what, look at that.
Do you know, it's I'm just thinking, if there's ever a church that needs to have its roof strapped on, it's yours, based in Poole. But it's true. I use my sensitivities in every area of my life. When I make a hiring decision now in my own company, I will really sit with it and feel it. And, and you can get so much from that if you give yourself a moment. He says, having made 2 wrong hires recently, but you don't always get it right,
You can hire because you see the potential.
Yeah.
But it's also a two-way street because they have then got to see the potential in remaining where they are. And again, like our mediumship, the first 6 months, that's the time people will be quick to dismiss because there's no real investment of time or of energy. There's still a newness there and it can be dropped just as easily. After about 6 months, you start to feel, you know what, I'm getting on now. All right, I do find trouble with some bits, but other bits I quite like. And we start to develop that routine and then relationship. And that is exactly the same within our working life, with our social life, with our development life. Getting over those initial few months, starting to bed in, and start to feel it, and then things will grow.
It's Mother's Day today when we record this. Are you just about to go straight into service then?
No, we had ours this morning.
You've done.
We had a morning service.
Oh.
Which is wonderful. It used to be 3:00 in the afternoon. And without being rude, it was a real pain in the derriere because you spent all morning getting ready to go to church. And then in the evening afterwards, only in the height of summer when it was daylight till 10:00, could you actually get out and do other things. Otherwise, the whole day just revolved around the service.
I always think that room you sit in has such a good energy about it. It's just got such a radiance. I love it.
It has. And I work very hard with the energy of the church.
I feel it.
I will actively deal with any discourse. Because we see there's quite a lot in churches and centres. You've got one party, don't like the other party. We work with energy. How dare you think that you can sit here? I can't do it. You can sit here and give the evils out to somebody sat there without an effect.
Well, yes, exactly. Especially in a place as sacred as that.
Yeah.
It's been a delight to have you on. Would you like to close your workshop episode today with a final thought? It's beautiful. I can't believe every time I talk to you, it flies by.
I know. I'm just looking at the time, thinking, where did that go? With a final thought. Yeah. Don't limit your mediumship to what you want. Explore your mediumship as a form of connection to see where it goes. As I said, I've got 2 beautiful people from the evidential development group who are now working as healers in the church, and they're a great asset. They love it. We love them. The people coming in for healing love them because they had that openness. They tried the evidential and it was like, not sure, don't feel it. Oh, healing. Oh, I like this. So don't limit yourself. Don't put that cap on it and go, I'm going to be a platform medium. Rather approach it as saying, I'm going to explore connection. Just nice, simple introduction. I'm going to explore connection. Where do I go from there?
But that's beautiful. And what was ringing through my mind there as you were saying that is, we all have this preconceived idea on where we should be or where you should go. But all you're doing it is limiting yourself. You don't know what the universe might have in store for you. So keep an open mind.
Definitely.
Lawrence Savill, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for coming onto the Soul Sync podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you for asking me, Jason. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Keep an open mind indeed. Don't limit yourself by thinking small. Don't be sitting for the spirit world there with a set criteria of what you think should happen. Lawrence is right. Just sit there and be. Just quiet the mind. Because so often when I even used to sit at the very beginning, I used to sit saying, oh, this is what I want today. This is what Jason wants. And I'm limiting myself. It means I'm not open to what the spirit world, the intelligence of the spirit world might have for us. That was a fascinating conversation. I absolutely love Lawrence. I could talk to him for quite some time, let me tell you that. And I think we talked about so many interesting topics, and it really made me think a lot about my own mediumship. But until next time, goodbye.